So let me ask you this question. As a property manager, do you dread lease renewal season? All these tenants, their leases coming up for renewal. Some are going to move, some are going to stay. It's just a tough time, isn't it? Well, let me give you 4 tips, things that we have found that have made the entire lease renewal process, the turnover process, faster and easier for us. Number 1 is this: simply start the lease renewal process early. Now, how early? Well, earlier than you're doing it now. We start our process about 120 days prior to the lease actually coming up for renewal. Now, the process for us looks like this. Step number 1 is we're going to get out there, we're going to find out what lease renewal rate we want to offer to that tenant. And we want to be contacting that tenant early. Why? We don't want the tenant even realizing that their lease is coming up for expiration yet. Now, if it's a good tenant, we want them to stay. We absolutely want them to stay. So let's offer them that lease renewal before they've had time to think, gosh, maybe I should look around for somewhere else. Maybe I want to move. You don't want to lose good tenants. Good tenants are great. So start the process early, offer them the renewal to keep them in place. So whatever process you have, start it earlier. You almost can't start too early. So we do ours 120 days prior to the lease expiration date. And number 2, now some people disagree with this, but I'm a believer in simply using a 1-page lease renewal rather than an entire new lease. So let's pretend the tenant's been in the property for a year and the tenant wants to stay and you want the tenant to stay. Great. From a paperwork standpoint, what do you have to do? Are you going to make up an entire new 18-page lease agreement? That's a lot. We just do a 1-page lease renewal. Now, if you have had a lot of changes over the prior year with your lease agreement, then maybe you do want to do up a full new lease. Or if you just had some minor modifications or changes to your lease, just add those modifications or changes into the 1-page lease renewal. It doesn't need to be a big process. Have a 1-page lease renewal that says the terms and conditions of the lease agreement, dated January 7th, 2008, by and between John Smith and Grace Property Management for 123 Main Street is hereby extended from the date of here to here with the following changes. And then you put the updates into the body of the lease. That was pretty good legal language, wasn't it? Right off the top of my head. Yeah, I impress myself sometimes. So do a 1-page renewal, include those lease tips if you need them on the updates, but don't go for the full lease agreement. It just makes it more complex. Number 3, send out a turnover process letter. So let's pretend that the tenant says, no, I'm not renewing. I'm going to vacate. Okay, great. We want to make this process easy for the tenant. Ideally, we want to give them their full deposit back, don't we? We want them to leave the property in great condition. We write them a check for the full amount. We all go away happy. So we have a little letter that goes out and it says, Dear Mr. Tenant, in an effort to assist you in the turnover and to hopefully help you receive 100% of your security deposit back to you, please follow these steps carefully as your property is going to be turning over. And it lists what to do. It lists how to clean, when to contact us, how to change utilities, where to leave your keys. We make it so easy for them. Why? Because we really want them to get their deposit returned back. So step into the role of you assisting them in how to get their deposit returned back. If you do these things, you will get your deposit returned back. So create a turnover process letter to give it to your tenant. Now, number 4, after they have moved, if they have moved, I'm a big believer in not allowing the tenant to attend the walkthrough. There's no good reason to let that tenant attend the walkthrough on a vacant property. It only potentially creates problems. Now, in some states, you're required by law to set a pre-walkthrough. You're required by law to let the tenant attend this move-out inspection. If you're required by law, obviously, then you'll have to do it. If your state does not require it, then don't do it. Because all that's going to happen if you let the tenant attend the walkthrough is you're walking through the property and you're looking around, you're looking at things, and you say, they say, well, how does it look? Am I going to get my deposit back? Because that's what they want to know, isn't it? Am I going to get my deposit back? And you say, well, gee, I think so. I don't really see a whole lot here that's bad. Okay, great. They're happy as can be. Then they leave. And then you find behind the door in the bedroom the big hole that the doorknob knocked through the wall. And so you decide to charge them for that. And you charge them $25. And they call you a month later and say, hey, you told me, that person at the property told me I was getting my deposit back. There was no hole in the door there. So don't even go there. The reason they're wanting to attend is to find out if they're going to get their deposit returned back. So what we tell them is a couple things. If they request to attend the walkthrough, we say, look, we can't determine during that walkthrough whether or not you're getting your deposit back or not. So it's not going to do you any good. Number 2, we can't let you do any work at that walkthrough once you give us the keys. So if we walk through and I say, oh gosh, this stove is really dirty, you can't say, oh, well let me clean it real quick so I can get my deposit back. You can't do that. Once you give me the keys, Property's ours, it's not yours. You no longer have access. Now, if you want to kind of be a wimp and you're afraid of telling them no, they can't be there, then maybe default to something like, you know what, Mr. Tenant, I'd be happy to have you do the walkthrough, but I don't know what my schedule is that day. I may be showing up there at 6 in the morning. I may be showing up there at 6 at night. I just don't know when that will be, so it's not logistically possible for me to schedule a walkthrough with you. So don't do that walkthrough. It'll just make it easier for you. And you could also tell them, look, we have multiple people walking the property. I'm one of the people, but we're going to have other individuals walking the property as well, looking for items, looking for issues. So I can't give you any information on the property. But remember, once they give you those keys, they do not have legal access to the property. It's yours, not theirs. Don't let them back in. It just creates problems. But those are a couple things to do to make the turnover process, the lease renewal process, smoother, easier for you, easy for your tenants, and it truly can just be a win-win situation.